Hey, you. Can I tell you a secret? I'm actually from the future, and I've traveled back in time to tell you that these first couple episodes might sound kind of bad. And that's because we were just starting out. So for episodes 1 through 6, the audio quality isn't as good. But don't worry, as most things in life, it gets better. Starting with episode 7, the hottest sports entertainment thing in the world. And once again, this is a reminder from the future. We have social media now on all major social platforms: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, if that's your thing. And just wanted to remind you to give us a follow, a like, or even check us out. Now, I'll get out of your way and go back to the future and let you enjoy the episode. Have fun.
Before we get started, if you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let us explain.
Anchor has the tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast straight from your phone or computer.
When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more.
It is everything you need to make a podcast in one place.
And best of all, Anchor is totally free.
Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome to episode 4 of Searching for MacGuffin with your hosts, George,
Gabe,
And Link.
Today's topics is TV shows. So, let's jump right into it.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about 5 favorite TV shows. I'm excited about this list. My list consists of all comedy shows. I love comedy so much, so that's what you're going to see on my list, just comedy. And number 5 on my list, I have Flight of the Conchords.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right, that's right. Grammy Award-winning Flight of the Conchords, half of a Oscar-winning Flight of the Conchords. I just love this show so much. If you've never watched it, it's about these 2 artists from New Zealand who come to America, come to New York to try to make it, but it doesn't happen. They just have bad luck, a terrible manager, and it's a show on HBO. Very dry sense of humor, super dry. But I love this show. It's actually one of the cool things about the show is that Taika Waititi, who is now super popular everywhere, he started work. He worked on this show as well, as long as James Bobbin, who directed the Muppet movies. So it has a cool cast of people that worked on it that are popular now. So yeah, Flight of the Conchords for me is one of my favorite shows of all time.
Yeah, that's super respectable. Like, now that I don't know why it didn't even pop into my mind, but it wouldn't make my top 5, but I think it will definitely be on the top 10 for sure, because that show's absolutely hilarious. And I think not a lot of people know about it.
Exactly, yes. So if I'm going to recommend a show to anyone on my list, it'd be Flight of the Conchords, because I want more exposure on it, because I think it's hilarious. Super dry sense of humor. And some of these people are very popular now. Like Jermaine Clements is pretty much not everywhere. He's not ubiquitous, but you see him in a lot of things now. So I should love these, and I love the band as well, the comedy duo.
Right.
Their music is what got me. Music was what got me into it. I remember you kind of introduced me into it. Listening to it, and then eventually I got into the TV show, which is fantastic.
And what I appreciate about the show is that it's like you said, it's like the foundation of so much other stuff, because you mentioned like Bobbin's work. Those Muppet movies
are great.
Like reinvigorated my passion for the Muppets. And
one of the characters in the show, Brett McKenzie, does the music for the Muppet, and that's where he won his Oscar for writing that song with Kermit.
Muppet?
No, everything is hard.
The opening.
The opening. Yeah, he won an Oscar for that. So it's just cool how they all, these people came out of nowhere, helped each other out, became popular now, and look at Taika Waititi just exploding everywhere.
Yeah, so everything from Star Wars to Marvel to Ragnarok. Oh my goodness.
So good, yeah. Fantastic. So that's my first. What about you, Gabe? What do you have on your list?
All right, so starting off, I'm going to kick it off with some controversy. I have Game of Thrones on my list.
Oh, wow.
Not controversial for me, because I've never watched it.
Yeah, like those of you who've seen it, obviously George has seen it, and lots of other people, but for me, this show I started watching when it first came out, and I was like, what's going on? Like, I didn't really know what to expect. I just saw it were like HBO was blowing it out of the water with advertisement marketing. They were just trying to hook you. And at that point, I'm gonna watch the first episode, and for like right off the bat, I was like, what is going on? I got like this fantasy type of Lord of the Rings type of feel from it, and I was like, oh,
an X-rated Lord of the Rings,
basically.
Wait, so did you jump in right at the beginning, or
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like a premiere, the night it premiered. I remember watching it, and
a true fan right there. OG.
And so I kept up with it. I think I kind of stopped a bit after season, I think, 2. And like I just wasn't watching week to week at that point. Like I remember I ended up catching up, watching the rest of it. But after that,
that's probably why you like it so much.
Cause what?
Because you weren't watching it week to week. I think for me, season 2 and 3, it was very, like the lulls between week to week.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a really good show at that point, but there's like a dissonance between season 1.
Oh no, yeah, no, I agree with that. And then I think was when 4 is when I started to like watch it back up week to week. But you actually make a good point of how watching a show straight on affects it versus just kind of having to watch like the anticipation that builds from week to week, which I think plays into it in the later seasons when the show is gigantic. People that weren't watching it when it first started just kind of get into it because of the hype. The hype carried that show towards the end, and those it created a lot of memories for me with many of my friends that necessarily weren't into the shows that I was watching. Right. But that was something that we both agreed on. Like, oh, this is great. And then towards the end, I was like, like they still enjoyed it, and like I still enjoyed the get-togethers. I remember towards for the final season, for season 7 and 8. We were watching, the show would come on, and I would invite a bunch of people to my apartment. Right. And we'd bring food, and it'd just be this giant gathering, social event. And I think after in the show, towards one of the episodes, one of the big episodes that was supposed to be this is all what it's basically been boiling down to. This is the second or third episode in the last season. Right. The big battle. I kind of already felt okay, this show I don't believe is gonna meet my expectations, and I kind of had already mentally prepared. So by the time it came, I was like, okay. Right. But I think for me, what I cherish most is the memories that I made with the people when I watched those things, and also seasons 4 and 5. Pedro Pascal was great for me. Oh wow, he was fantastic. Yeah. So I tend to look fondly on those things, and I'm not gonna forget. I'm not gonna throw under the. What
makes the show bad? Why is the ending so bad?
Okay, so we'll address that in a second. I'll tell you. It's great that we can have this conversation because you're reminding me of all that. Yeah, at some point it was me and my inner circle, my friends and family getting together every Sunday to watch it. And you weren't here, right?
That's true.
Yeah. So you weren't in town. You were living out of state. So we would get together on Sundays, and it's what time was it at? A 9?
9.
So it's pretty late for a Sunday because all of us work Monday morning, but we would still make the time to be together by that hour so that we could end our night at 10 and go our separate ways. But yeah, it
was the old school way of watching TV.
Yeah, it's a watch party,
because it was so event driven, and that's how I got into it. Because I missed the whole first season, but I kept getting told about this show from people that wouldn't usually be watching a fantasy series, and it was man, if everyone is watching it, then I guess maybe I should be watching, because if anything, I'm the target audience here, So I binged all of season 1, and it was excellent. Then the tragedies of season 1, I guess everyone knows what I'm talking about, but in case Link ever watches this, the tragedies of season 1, it was well, where does this show go from here? But I started watching it week to week.
Oh, I know they kill Boromir.
Yeah, Ned Stark. Yeah. And a couple of other characters that are very significant. But and he was a high point. Ned Stark is a high point.
Yeah. I think I watched that episode when he died, randomly. I'm oh, I like this guy. Right. Why does Boromir die all the time?
And I think the show did a really good job. When you first saw that, when you watch that first season and that happens, it's just kind of did the main character did they just kill the main character?
Yeah.
And it's it really
bold move.
It's a bold choice, but then I think towards when the next season starts, you kind of just see it is a Game of Thrones. It's multiple storylines, multiple plot lines. It's just you see it from different perspectives because you're always like it's not on one singular story. It's not on one singular character. You're moving from different families, houses, factions, and I love that.
Does Pedro Pascal win the Game of Thrones?
So, in order to respond to your question that you asked about what is it that makes it quote unquote bad, it's going back to to the controversial part when Gabriel first introduced this as his choice. It was ultimately where the story ends up. So I don't know, how would you explain that?
They built up something really, really good. And so over time you can kind of see like it kind of starts to dwindle a bit, which I think would be as a result of
the novels.
The novels, not like they just moved past them, right?
Yeah. So I think fundamentally, and probably almost everyone would agree, the main issue with the series is that it's based on a series of novels that haven't finished been writing. So they get to a point and they're following, with some creative liberties, but they're following as closely to the source material as you can, but they move past the period where this show needs to end and we're already out of book material because the series hasn't finished, but the book keeps getting delayed and delayed and delayed, and the show needs to move forward. So the creators and the writers of the show have to make their own ending with limited input from the writer because he doesn't want to show his hand, the writer of the novels, because he doesn't want to show his hand to where the story ends.
Ultimately, that's how it happens, and I mean...
So the real villain is the author, not HBO or the writers, right?
I mean...
Because we're not ruined, Come on, you're on a deadline.
I feel like that we would... I think Benioff and Weiss would share a bit of the blame.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, this guy's taking a very long time to finish these books. And he's developing a video game now? And I was just like, finish your book, man. Like, come on. But yeah.
And he's old, too. Like, he's died any time.
No, he's doing it on purpose, man. He's gonna... I don't know if he's waiting for this to release posthumously or if he's just gonna troll all of us and the book will never exist.
Has it done,
He's a really good troll, though. But yeah, Game of Thrones for me has that epic feel and just the fondness, the memories I have with the people watching it, the grandeur of it definitely for me was a highlight.
Yeah. Before we move on really quick, how have you avoided this show for so long, Link?
Told myself I was going to watch it once it was done, right? Because I don't like waiting episodically, weekly for episodes, which is why I'm struggling right now with some of the Disney Plus stuff. But, it's done. Oh, I can finally watch it. Oh, it's a terrible show. You shouldn't. The ending is terrible. Yeah. It's just like, how can you ruin such a perfect show? I'm like, all right, now I don't have to. I'll probably watch it, but it's not like something I have to do.
It's not a priority.
Yeah, it's not a priority.
Yeah. Right. This rule that you have, sometimes it annoys me, but I can really respect it because I know when Flash started, I was like, you got to watch this show. And you're like, wait till it's over. I'm not really interested. I go,
no, because I watched the first 6 episodes of Flash, and then I'm like, okay, I'm caught up. Let me wait because I don't want to.
Yeah.
And then it ended up paying off because the show.
Yeah, eventually, in my opinion, others still enjoy the show, which is fine. But yeah, it's kind of not must see TV the way that.
It's not what it was when it started.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm gonna share my first pick, and I'm guessing it might be on some of your lists. Oh, or maybe not because it's so new and so recent, which may be controversial. I've talked about how I try not to include, especially if a series is currently still in its run.
Yeah.
But I couldn't ignore just how significant this was for my life. It's The Mandalorian.
Oh, yeah. So great, man.
I can't say anything about it.
Yeah.
It's perfectly respectful to have that.
Is it on anybody else's list?
No, my list is all comedy.
Okay. All right. Okay, good. So, basically, a live-action Star Wars show is the dream that I've had since I was a child.
Agreed.
I only had those 3 movies. There was nothing else. There was comic books and video games and novels, but canon and the only source material was those 3 books. And Lucas had been talking about a live action show for years and years, and you hear about how it'll cost $1 million per episode, and it's not feasible. No one will ever fund it.
Yeah.
So we get Clone Wars, which is awesome and
Oh, I love Clone
excellent,
Wars,
you
yeah.
know, but it's not a live action show. It's the closest thing I ever thought we'd get to a show. So to see a show that literally costs like what, $10 million an episode, something like that.
Yeah.
I think that's what they were saying. And that's just cinematic. It's just, and also it's the thing that keeps kind of like the engine of Star Wars moving in this generation.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the fandom is divided on how they feel about each of the different chapters
Trilogy.
in the new trilogy and the trilogy as a whole. But The Mandalorian is like that uniting thing. Like, no, look, we can still make, you know, we can push forward in a new direction with still so much of like the classic aesthetic and storytelling mechanisms. Like, it's so Star Wars. The show is so Star Wars. And I have very little doubt that it's gonna end strong. You know, you can be proven wrong, but it's just so good, and I enjoy it so much.
You say that again? You don't think it's gonna end strong?
No, I have very little doubt that it won't end strong.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely will. Like, I don't see it falling off a cliff.
Okay.
So I have faith, and again, my faith can be broken. You know, nothing is certain in this world, but I have faith in a way that I don't like trust anything while it's still going on. I don't think the show is going to lose its essence. I think they'll cut and run before then.
Yeah.
If anything.
Yeah, I think going back to my previous pick with Game of Thrones, I think I kind of felt that a bit in this is such a great show, and I kind of lost faith as like there's so many different things out there that kind of end up falling off personally for me, and Game of Thrones for me was a big one. Like it hit me. It kind of in a way like it scarred me in a bit where it's like I don't really trust anyone to end things properly anymore. But I share in your assessment that I think they're gonna do a great job. I think they're gonna know when is the right time to end it, continue on in a different way. But one thing I would like to add about The Mandalorian, which I absolutely love and gave me literal tears watching some of their episodes, I think that the live action Star Wars show, I mean, that we've all basically all been waiting for, the fact that week to week it would basically it would show you new Star Wars.
Yeah.
In a matter of days. Things that we would have to
open up the world
exactly
in a way that
things that we would have to wait for before it was like what 20 years
right.
And then a couple after that. So like things that we would have to wait, we can see that in days. And there's so much stuff coming out now, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a later episode. But I agree, The Mandalorian is really up there for me.
Yeah.
I think some of the best Star Wars we're getting at the moment.
Yeah, because for so long, like, Star Wars was so linear, and we're always like, let's open up the world. Let's see the underworld. Let's see, you know, crime, bounty hunters, agriculture, you know, like regular stuff. And you get to see that. You get to go off the beaten path, which, you know, for a long time, Star Wars fans, you've experienced through other mediums, but never through, like, live action.
Another thing I want to add is seeing Pedro Pascal. His performance, yes, we don't see his face, but having...
I mean, you see his face, though.
I mean, eventually you see his face, yeah, but the majority is in the mask.
Right.
But for me, it was a special moment because and this also happened to me watching Rogue One with Diego Luna, having a Latino actor, like, be, like, a lead in a Star Wars project, that for me was huge. Seeing Diego Luna and Pedro Pascal,
Oscar Isaac as well, yeah.
Oscar Isaac, yeah, like those types of things, and like I love their relationship. Their friendship is awesome. Yeah. But seeing those things, like it really made, it drew me in as well. It was another thing I didn't expect because for the longest time I love the characters that we've seen in Star Wars.
Yeah.
But it gave me something I really didn't know that I necessarily wanted, and from that, like the choices that they made with him as a character and his performance have been great so far. And I mean him and Grogu, that last episode, episode, oh man,
how do you not cry when you watch that last episode?
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
and that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah, you cry tears in Star Wars.
You'll always have Bail Organa, by the way, I think the first Hispanic Star Wars character. No.
As a lead. I mean,
yeah.
As
He'll be on the Andor show, right? Which I'm really excited about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is he gonna sing?
I hope so.
Is it be a musical?
Yeah, I hope so too.
Well, talking about shows that fell off, One of my favorite shows of all time is Arrested Development. I love this show so much. You know that. You know how many times I rewatch the show. Like, you tell me, oh, you should watch this show. Nah, I'm gonna watch Arrested Development.
Yeah, it's literally like, oh, I can't because I'm watching Arrested Development. It doesn't matter what part of the year I tell him this.
Yeah, I love this show so much. I think seasons 1 through 3 are like the best, some of the best comedy I've ever seen in my life. And then season 4 and 5, I was like, oh, okay, how do you go from there to there? You get me?
Yeah.
But yeah, I just love Arrested Development. I love all the characters. I love the writing as well, and how it's so good. The foreshadowing in it, the whole Buster and the claw thing. Yeah. It's like, I love that show.
It really is a smart show.
I think it's genius. I love I'm just surprised how it went. You know, how it actually, how it fell from grace.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. You know, you have the same creator working on seasons 4 and 5. I'm not sure what happened there. Those last 2 seasons aren't so good.
I think sometimes you try to like strike oil twice in the same place. Like it's just like, unfortunately it had its end with this cancellation, and then just too much time passed.
Yeah.
Where everybody was in a different place and working around all those elements and trying to get the series to work. It's just the availability wasn't there, so they kind of wrote around it, and it wasn't the same. You couldn't recreate it.
And that's what made the seasons 1, 2, and 3 so well, is that the ensemble cast. They were just great with each other.
And their chemistry.
Their chemistry, yeah. The episodes where they're at, you know, the mom's house there, like parties and all that stuff. Yeah, it's just great. And you didn't get to see that in latter seasons.
Yeah, I really enjoyed, like you said, it's a very smart show. It's very witty. But I also like the family aspect of it, because I feel like people can kind of relate to, like, if you have a big family, you can kind of see like the craziness of the different people and the interactions, the outlandishness that is Job, and seeing Michael have to basically take it all in and also do his own thing while trying to keep his family together when they're literally driving him insane. They're like, he's like the one sane person, but at the same time he has his own like moments where he just like breaks off.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's genius, and I agree. It was very close to making my list.
Yeah. So I love this show. It's great. The reason it didn't make my list was because of that, like the inability to sustain all the way to the end. But the other part of it is that, unlike Link, I can watch this show over and over, because sometimes it's frustrating for me because I feel that I've been in the Michael situation.
Yeah, you are the Michael of the family.
And it's like, there's every member of the family, I'm like, there is a type of this in my family. And I'm like, I can't, this hits too close to home.
Who are we?
We'll save that for another discussion. But yeah.
All right, Gabe, what about you?
So next up on my list, I have a show that's actually very personal for me. It's Firefly. And that show, I mean, it's a cult classic now, but I mean, it's only one season, of course, and the film. But that show, it's one of my dad's favorite shows as well. Yeah. And he's the one that got me into it, and it's just a lot of memories just watching it with him. A lot. The rewatchability we'd watch it all the time. It was like Arrested Development for us back then, and it was just something that I could really enjoy, and memorizing the lines and the jokes, and seeing all like just the like as well the chemistry that they all had, and then where the story went. It's a shame it only lasted one season, but I'm glad I was able to experience that, and I really enjoyed the movie as well, and the continuation of the story. But yeah, that show for me, like, but after the show, like playing the games, like the RPG games, there's the books and comics as well. That show was it was very special. It lived beyond what it was given, and unfortunately Fox canceled it. But you know, people carried on for them, and I hope one day. I mean, it's pretty much dead for me at this point, but. Yeah. But the hope one day, like, so we'll get something from it again. I know there's a comic supposed to be coming out, something like that. But to have the cast reunited in some form, like some way, that'd be a dream. Do I think it's gonna happen? Probably not. But
Fox is canceling our favorite shows.
Yeah, you know what though? I think sometimes it is tragic when such a great like creative property ends so abruptly. But at the same time, there's something about like the legacy that leaves
Yes, right?
behind.
Yeah.
Like you go out on top. You're like the James Dean of sci-fi, and it's like you appreciate it that much more because it's only X amount of episodes, and you're never gonna touch it again. So it will always be perfect.
Yeah.
You know, and then life moves on. Like I don't know if you'd even same thing. Like if they did do something in that universe, could they even be able to recreate it because of the people that we've lost and like the age? You know, people have moved
Joss
on.
Whedon being canceled.
That's true. You know, so it's like there's too many clouds hanging over it, and sometimes it's nice to just have it finished. I had a weird relationship with this show because I saw Serenity first.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't even know about Firefly. So I was like, this is the worst movie ever. There's no character development. Like, why is the action just starts like 15 minutes into the movie? Who are these people? What is going on?
I remember you telling me that movie sucks.
Yeah.
And growing up, that was my, movie sucks.
Yeah. But then it was like, don't you know? That's the sequel to Firefly. I was like, why isn't it called the same thing? Oh, licensing, blah, 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 Universal Fox, and all that. But it was like, oh, then I watched Firefly, loved it, and then I'm like, oh, this is the greatest movie ever. So,
No, that's a show. I actually haven't watched the show either.
oh,
There's 2 shows that you mentioned that I haven't watched. But I heard so many good things about the show, and it's only 1 season, and it's
Right.
great. And Nathan Fillion.
yeah, yes, his peak
Captain
Nathan Fillion.
Mallory.
Yeah.
That's been-
So yeah, I gotta watch it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, my next title is, and I'm pretty sure nobody else has this because I think I might be the only one with an animated series on my top 5 shows.
Yep.
Okay, so it's Batman the Animated Series. And this is like Emmy Award winning. This was, I remember they had nighttime specials when I was growing up. I got to experience this as a kid. I got to experience this when it came out. So it was like, it was event driven. It was appointment television. I had to make sure that I was home from school, that my bus route got me there before, the episodes aired. It basically shaped what I thought an animated series could be. Like, we talked about anime. We talked about our love of anime. This was the first time where it's like, here is a serialized, like, serious drama series in animation. And it was a huge contrast from the Batman I grew up watching before that, which was like the old...
The comedy one?
Yeah, the comedy series with Adam West. So, Batman the Animated Series, it's also the foundation for the DC animated universe, what would become Superman the Animated Series, Justice League Unlimited, which is one of my favorite series of all times.
Almost on my list as well.
Yeah.
So good.
But Batman is that foundation. It's like you can't really appreciate everything that goes on in those series if you don't start with Batman the Animated Series, and then how it transitions to Batman Beyond later. Like, and they were always subverting my expectations because it was like they changed to the Superman animation style, and I was like, no, they ruined it, the Gothic style from. No, some of the stories they tell in that last volume, how it's collected now.
I remember those. Yeah,
Yeah.
DVD, that's how I watched them.
Yeah,
Like,
they're so good. They're so defining. They're defining. That's the thing about this series is that it defines the characters. Harley, Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze is so poetic.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you have Arnold. It's
Well-
like so different.
Well, because the thing is that a lot of people don't realize is that what we understand of those characters comes from this show.
yeah, exactly.
Mr. Freeze was more Arnold than he was, Batman
Exactly,
the Animated
yes.
Series until this show. There was no Harley. Everything we know about Harley comes from this show, and
yeah.
then obviously it's grown
Bruce
and
Timm
changed.
created Harley.
And like everything, like Poison Ivy, Clayface, a lot of it is like Ra's al Ghul. It's characters from the past brought back into like this generation, and now they're all like A-listers. Like they're all A-list villains.
Batman has the best rogues gallery.
His
in my
rogues
opinion.
gallery,
Yeah.
yeah.
And a lot of that is this show, because I don't think I had ever read a Ra's al Ghul story until until this time. It had been years since they used them, if I'm not mistaken. So this show just redefined animation. It got serious cred, like awards. It redefined television for me.
Yeah,
At the time. So Batman the Animated Series.
I agree. I think it's a standard through which I judge a show, like an animation show, right?
Mhm.
Like, all
Right.
right. I was trying to think the other day. What's the Batman animated series of my generation, right? Because or Gabe was we're close. Yeah, we're close. Yeah, right. And that's how it is. Like I'm like, all right, it's for me. It's what I compare it to.
Right.
I compare all these shows to it. Like this is how good it is.
Right.
So yeah, man. And then the voice acting is amazing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You have Tara Strong. You have Mark Hamill as the Joker. Like every time I read a Batman comic book and the Joker's in it, it's Mark Hamill's voice. It's Mark Hamill's voice.
Mark Hamill is the Joker, and Kevin Conroy is my Batman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I can't. I'm not gonna read a comic book in a Heath Ledger Joker way.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be in a Mark Hamill way.
Right.
So yeah, I love that. I love that show. So good.
I remember when I found that out that Mark Hamill was the Joker. I remember I was just on Wikipedia and I was like looking, and this is like kind of when like Force Awakens was about to like drop, and I'm like kind of like getting back into everything. I'm just like, let me look at what he's done. And I see all the shows. I'm like, he was in this. He was in Avatar. And I found out he was the Joker, and I'm like, Luke Skywalker is the Joker. And I watched the show through and through, and like I memorized that voice, and I'm just like, and like once I put two and two together, I'm just like, oh my god, that's him. Luke Skywalker is voicing the Joker, and I agree. Whenever I read comics, or I feel like yes, Heath Ledger's performance is astounding, and it's a one of a kind, but Mark Hamill's Joker is he's a Joker.
He's a Joker.
Same thing with Kevin Conroy.
Absolutely. Kevin Conroy is Batman.
Like, just so many times of me just like just seeing Batman talking to Alfred, or just like doing work on the computer in that iconic voice for me, like that is Batman.
Yeah. Going back to the earlier episode when we went over video games in Arkham, just the fact that they got Hamill and Conroy,
the continuity, they know.
They know what's up. Like these guys know what they're doing.
And the show also gave us Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
And Batman Beyond is great.
And well, Batman Beyond was one of those the other time where it was like, oh, this show's Batman Beyond now. I'm so upset. I don't want some like Spider-Man kid, like Spider Batman. Like, no, I want, and then just old man Batman with Ace the Bat Hound. Like, it's such a callback to all other mediums. Like, oh, this show's so good, and it gets the way it intertwines back and loops back to Batman the Animated Series.
They need to make a Batman Beyond movie.
Yeah,
like a live action movie. You know, get Clint Eastwood before he dies and play Bruce Wayne, old grumpy Bruce Wayne. Because
I mean, I kind of feel like not that they're doing Batman Beyond, but now that they're getting Keaton to come back as Batman, I think
you could do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I should think that Clint Eastwood is more of that old grumpy Batman.
Yeah, I mean now especially.
But I can, you know.
Yeah, no, because like I can see him as that like Batman Beyond Batman. Like 20 years ago, I thought Clint Eastwood was like Dark Knight Returns Batman. I was like, to be doing the action scenes, you know, to be doing the fight. But yeah, I can see him now there.
All right, so next on my list, I have Seinfeld.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is probably one of the funniest shows of all time. I think in most people's list of comedy shows, Seinfeld's up there.
Seinfeld's on my list too.
Yeah.
Seinfeld's also on my list.
Oh wow!
Oh wow!
That's our first commonality right there.
I guess we can yada over this.
Yada.
Next.
What?
I yada over the best part. You get me?
That'd be a Seinfeld thing to do.
So why Seinfeld?
So I grew up I didn't grow up with cable, right? So all I had growing up watching TV was Warner Brothers, right? So they had The Simpsons, they had the cartoons, right? But then after that, like after I think 4 or 5, it went on to the adult stuff. So we had The Simpsons, which was cool because as a child, like, all right, cartoons. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay. But then after that, it'd be Seinfeld. And I grew up hating the show. I'm like, this show's not funny. There's nothing special about this show. I don't get it. And it wasn't until like my sophomore year of high school that something clicked. Like I had nothing to watch because I didn't have cable. Right. It's a summer day. I'm bored. All right. I watched the episode of which one was it? The Manhands one. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why I thought it was the funniest thing ever. And you know, they showed 2 episodes of Seinfeld back to back. I'm like, all right. The next episode caught my attention. I'm like, all right, I'll watch it again tomorrow to see how it goes. And I watched it again, and dang. It's just, I thought it was hilarious. It's one of the most quotable shows of all time. Right. So, yeah. I love it. I love the show.
No, I can definitely relate to your experience with that show being on local TV. I just always saw it on
It
TV.
was always there. Yeah, exactly.
As a kid, like, so I'm like, okay, and people had it on all the time. I was like, why is anywhere that I went, I was going to get a haircut, and this guy just had it on.
Yeah.
It was everywhere I went. Like
one of the reasons why I didn't like it at first.
Exactly. It was everywhere, and I'm like, I tried watching it, and I'm like, that's not funny. What? And also, who are these people, like, laughing? It was one of the first sitcoms that I seen. I was like, who's people laughing? Like, I was just like, I did not see the appeal of it. And I remember people always talking about it, and I was like, okay. And I wasn't until, like, in high school, I think it was my senior year, where I saw the same thing again. It was a rerun. I saw the episode where George becomes a hand model.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this episode, and then he goes through all these steps to protect his hands.
Yeah.
And then at the end, just to get them ruined. And that, for me, was, I don't know why, I just found it so funny. So I'm like, okay, let's check it out. And I found a way to watch. I forgot how I started watching them, but I found a way to watch all of them, and I have to do a rewatch at least once a year. Because every time I watch it, it's the same thing. I still die at the same jokes, even though I've heard them so many times before.
It's awesome.
I can rewatch that show so many times, and I finally understood why that show was always on in everyone's TV.
Yeah, it's so funny that we all had the same experience, because that's exactly how I was exposed to the show. Now, obviously, I was older than you guys, so I did understand the show. But I didn't understand all of it, because I'm in high school. So there's adult stuff that I don't get. I'm not really understanding it. But it's, when you watch that thing and you're like, this is funny, but I know that I don't get all of it. So, I know that this is smarter than I am.
Not direct.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but you're like, I can appreciate this is good, because I'm not sure. I know it's good. I can tell. But, I know it's good, but I can tell it's great. But I'm just not there yet.
Yes.
And sometimes when, artists, that was really good, because I didn't capture it all. And so this almost didn't make my list, because, it kept coming up in my mind. And I was like, no, I can't put it because I'm not, strong enough of a fan. Because I thought, I didn't watch it all in order. Until recently. I literally didn't watch the whole thing sequentially till maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Now we have streaming, but it was always syndication. So it was always one day would be season 3, the other day would be season 6. Yeah. And nothing made any callbacks to episodes I hadn't seen yet.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was so I was I'm not big enough fan because I don't know the show as well as a real fan. But I would think of another show, and it'd be it's not as good as Seinfeld. I would think about a show, it's not as good as Seinfeld. I was like, no, Seinfeld keeps beating everything else on my top 10. So Seinfeld. And I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now as an adult. But at that time, I remember I had a TV Guide subscription, and I would and I don't know, we had a lot of magazines growing up, Entertainment Weekly and things like that. And every episode was some cultural phenomenon. It was everything from the double dip to the sponge to man hands. All of that stuff was just part of the cultural colloquialisms. Everything was now a term that you were gonna hear all over the world. It was memes before memes.
Exactly. It's so universal. People that you don't know, it could be a stranger. They'll make a reference and you'll understand it. Mm-hmm. And two people, I've seen it so many times where two people will make a joke that has to do with Seinfeld, and at the time I'm like, that's not. But I didn't realize at the time, I'm like, he just said something. They don't even know each other. It was a random interaction that I was spectating. Mm-hmm. Then I'm watching Seinfeld, and then I'm like, that's what that guy said. Mm. And I was like, oh my goodness, people, this show is timeless. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can watch the show at any point, and it's fantastic. It's great viewing. I don't know what else to say, man. It's genius.
I love that show, man. It's so good. Kramer's hilarious.
Yep.
Absolutely. The characters are another kid, man.
And they're just perfectly cast.
Yeah. It was a show, because, growing up as a guy, a lot of my friends and I had the mentality of girls aren't funny.
Right.
Right? Yeah. Girls are not funny. Only guys are funny. Guy comedians are the funniest. Are funnier than girl comedians, right?
Right.
But Julia Louis-Dreyfus on that show, she proved, growing up with that mentality, maybe I think girls might be funny, because Julia Louis-Dreyfus is awesome in that show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Her timing, her delivery, her acting, I just loved it. So it just it just changed my mind. I remember I was watching it and I'm like, maybe I was watching the show and I'm like, maybe I should become a comedian. I want to do this. I want to be Jerry Seinfeld, live in New York, and do stand up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so go ahead.
It's okay. So does that circle us back around to
Yeah,
you
the
now?
back to me. I was gonna say. All right. So well, that was one round. I guess to continue on the Julia Louis-Dreyfus theme.
Okay.
My next show is Veep.
Wow.
I love this show, and the reason why. So George and my sister were trying to get me to watch the show after because they watched it as it was going on, and I'm like, nah, man, I don't want to watch this, man. And then I watched like a few episodes. And I'm like, it's political stuff. I don't think I understand it. The only funny part is when they're cursing at each other. I don't understand half of the stuff. I can't watch it. So I took a break from him. Like, I'm not gonna watch it. And it wasn't until last year, the beginning of the pandemic, when I watched it, and I was like, wow, this show is amazing.
What changed?
I don't know, because even then, I still don't understand some of the political aspects of it.
Right.
But just the characters, like, they introduced this one character, Richard Splett, I think is the funniest. I love that character so much. And I don't know, she's the characters, and I decided to give it a chance. I'm like, all right, let me push through this. Let me see if I can get over the fact that I don't understand what's going on. And most of the time I did. Mm-hmm. But like I said, it was a lot of the cursing that I thought was hilarious, the insults, how Selena insults characters like Jonah Ryan and Tony Hale's character. I forgot his name at the moment. Gary. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I love that show so much.
So like, my wife is a government teacher, and I've always been politically minded, so I understand a lot more of it. But even then, I approached that show like the comedy version of like House of Cards,
yes,
or West Wing, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna stop right now and I'm gonna go look up what they're talking about. When they're discussing like legislature or like the process of passing a bill or some kind of government term. Attorney speak, etc. It's like, all right, I'm like Googling while I'm watching the show, and I really appreciate that because it's like the same thing. It's like this show is smarter than me.
Exactly. And I couldn't tell you why it was funny. Mm-hmm. I just thought it was funny.
Right. Well, that's me in Seinfeld, right?
Yeah. But it's also like educational too.
Yeah. Like I learned what happened. Like if there's a tie for president, mm-hmm. and how I learned what happens afterwards.
Yeah, and I'm always like fact checking that stuff too because I'm like, is this real? Because
it sounds ridiculous, right?
Yeah, and these shows like they present these situations that have never happened and probably won't happen. But it was like then you look at them, and you're like, oh, this is what would happen in this situation, and it's like that the people writing the show, they're doing their homework.
Yeah,
and they put you to do homework.
And going back to Julia Louis-Dreyfus, man, her character Selena Kyle, her acting as Selena Kyle was Selena.
What a twist!
Yeah, Selena Myers. Although that might be a good
Catwoman.
Yeah, Catwoman. Oh, we're going somewhere with that.
With, Michael Keaton, Bruce Wayne.
Michael Keaton, Bruce Wayne. Yeah. That year, when she was on the show, she literally dominated the award seasons. Mm-hmm. Like she won Best Female Actress like multiple years in a row.
Right.
I thought that was insane.
Mm-hmm.
And she was up against some really competitive. She was against Tina Fey, Amy Poehler.
I mean, television in general has gotten so competitive in recent years.
But she just dominated all those awards. She won constantly, and I was like, man. Because before the show, she only had two. She's only won an Emmy twice. One for Seinfeld and one for The Adventures of Old Christine. Mm-hmm. But because of this, she now has 9 Emmys. So she won 7 years in a row.
That's crazy.
She's incredible. Yeah. But going like where I'm at with that show right now is where you were at the beginning. Well, not necessarily right now, because I remember I had just finished like another run of Seinfeld. And I was like, man, she's so good.
She's so good.
Yeah.
And then I was also watching House of Cards at the time. And I was like, man, can I combine both of these worlds? House of Cards and Seinfeld, basically. And I was like, and I remember you guys had mentioned that you guys are always talking about it. So I was like, I'll give it a shot. I think I only got a couple episodes in. I think I was exactly the same point. I was like, this is smarter than me. I can appreciate it, but it's like, I wasn't necessarily hooked in, and some things happened that I just didn't follow through with it. Mm-hmm. But You guys have convinced me. I'm gonna put.
It's-
It'll be the next thing
it's
that I
just
watch
great.
because I've been trying to find something to watch, and there are things to watch, but there's so many things.
I'll probably
Yeah.
rewatch. I'll rewatch it with you.
There's so many options right now,
Yeah.
and but the praise that it's gotten, and then just talking about it has reminded me of her greatness,
Oh,
Yeah.
and so I will. It's the top of my list now,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna check it out.
what about you? What's next on your show?
So coming up next on my list is a show called Fringe.
Oh wow.
Mm.
So
Boring as
Fringe, I remember watching with George and Link. You were there too, right? When we watched sometimes.
I was there, but I never paid attention to Fringe.
I mean, that's how it was with Lost. They were watching Lost a lot.
Yeah, I was there.
I was so confused. But Fringe, that was a show that really got me. I mean, like I explained before, Firefly being something that was huge for me just really threw me into the sci-fi genre. And I thought Fringe was an excellent mix of kind of like being grounded but also kind of like fantastical in that world, and just the bigger plot. Like, obviously we have the Monster of the Week type of show episodes, but
yeah, especially at first.
yeah,
Yeah.
like the first season, it takes don't get me wrong, like, it takes a little to get into, but second season, it's some of the best TV in my opinion, and just the big arc,
Yeah.
the overarching arc, I guess you would say, just it just captures you in, and I just thought it was fantastic. The characters over time, and people can say what they want about maybe season 4 and season 5. I think.
Really, that's a thing.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people like kind of like be mixed on it. I enjoyed that whole show.
So, the story of Fringe is like a story of two shows to me, because I'm the kind of person who prefers the overarching narrative versus the case of the week, especially because I remember at that time I was watching like 10 shows that were all cases of the week, and it was just like Person of Interest starts that way.
That's another one.
You know, there's just some. There was like Flash, the CW superhero shows,
Yeah.
Arrow. They were doing like Villain of the Week, Case of the Week, and I was like watching like 10 shows, and I'm like, man, it's all like procedurals. Like everything is like CSI, except it's with superheroes or sci-fi or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But it echoes, that first season echoes what one of my wife's favorite shows, X-Files. She was like, this is what X-Files was like. And like, she grew up with X-Files. And I didn't really watch X-Files growing up. I saw some of it now as an adult, and I'm still not even done with it. But then it became about the broader universe. And I was like, oh man, you sold me on the Case of the Week, because by the end of season 1, I was like, this show's...
Because it was still great.
Yeah, this show's awesome. Like, bring it, But then it became a long extended narrative, and I was like, oh, this show's even more fantastic. And then I remember like the problem with Fringe is that it would go through these long hiatuses.
Yeah.
And it would be like, oh, we're not starting the season now, because it was like that show was always getting canceled. Yeah. And it was like,
is this a Fox show as well?
Yeah, this is a Fox show, yeah.
Bro, just canceling our favorites.
Yeah. So it was like, oh, it's probably going to get canceled. And then the creator's like, I don't care. I'm going to write it like I'm going to continue. So I feel like maybe during that time period where you said season 4 or 5, like the story seemed like it was dragging or extended.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't, because the creator was really specific. Like, I have an end goal, and I'm not going to start writing the end goal until it's time to write the end goal. So he would keep extending the story, even in the face of like imminent cancellation.
And I respect that.
Yeah, and I totally respect that. So I was in it for the long haul, and where it ends up, I think it all circles back. Like, it's just a great narrative. It's just a great narrative.
And I think people don't understand. Like, they don't really they don't know that information. Like, I didn't know that information.
Mm-hmm.
I still enjoy seasons 4 and 5.
Right.
But I think the people that may not necessarily like it, they weren't all watching it as it was coming out. I think they were watching it like after.
Right.
But that was a really good piece. I had no idea of that.
Yeah.
And that really just makes me
Mad props.
Yeah, mad props and mad respect.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting how much you like sci-fi. I just realized Gabe, you really like sci-fi.
I love sci-fi.
Wow. I don't know why I just realized that right now.
I mean,
I've known you so long. I'm like, whoa, he really likes sci-fi.
Yeah, sci-fi and fantasy. Like, I mean, the pillars. My pillars are like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. Like,
Yeah, that's like the origin of fandom, right?
Right? Yeah.
Okay, next up my list. All right, and I don't know if this will be on yours. Again, it's a more recent show, but it's done. It's in the can. It's wrapped up, so I can reflect on the show as a whole. It's Daredevil.
And here it comes to complete the trinity of fandom is superheroes, which is also on my list.
So
Daredevil was also on your list?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So Daredevil, this show is almost immaculate.
Yeah, I agree.
And I hear some people nitpick certain aspects of it.
How dare they?
And I was like, I don't hear a complaint. Like they'll be like, oh, but this and that, and I'll be like, no, but that's a good thing.
Do you
That's
know one off the top of your head?
Yeah.
A lot of people complained about season 2, which when it came out, I thought, what are you talking about? Season 2 is great.
I mean, in my opinion, season 2 is better.
Season 2 is the best.
Season 2 is better than 1. No, I think 3 might be the best one.
Really?
I think 3 might be the best one. It's not my favorite because I'm so skewed because I love the Punisher and Elektra. So, like, once you have those 3 things on a show at the same time, you're the best.
Yeah.
And then they, like, with season 2, I was like, the only thing this is missing is Kingpin. And then they bring him back. And it was like, okay, this is the greatest show.
You convinced me. Season 2 might be the best one.
So it's my favorite, but I do agree that season 3, arguably, like, artistically, maybe better than narrative that they tell. But man, season 2 is so
if someone
cool.
says season 3 is their favorite season, I'm not gonna knock them for it. No
Exactly,
way.
right. The other thing is that the supernatural elements, I think that's what some of the complaints are in season 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, oh, the hand and the resurrections and all that, and I'm like,
that's setting up for the Defenders.
Well, it's not even just that though. Like, do you read Daredevil? Like, do you know Daredevil? Like, it's so Frank Miller. Like, all that stuff. Like, it's like also you have to establish like resurrection and stuff like that because once you introduce Elektra, the only thing anyone is thinking is about her dying and coming back. Like, it's so. I mean, I really don't understand it. I mean, I respect it to each their own, but season 2 with the Punisher and the way it spins off into a Punisher series that also did not disappoint. You know, because one thing about those Netflix shows is they didn't all sustain their quality.
No, I think it was only those 2.
Yeah, I mean, Jessica Jones, I love
season 1.
Jessica
Jones
you know what I mean?
Great.
And
the
then
first half of Luke Cage was great.
Okay, yeah.
And then
I hear some people, you know, they don't like the second half of Luke Cage. I think it's fine. I think you're right that Cottonmouth
was
steals
the show,
the first half of the series. I still think it ends off. You know, it doesn't stick the landing completely right. I like season 1. I think like from that point on, some of the other shows had to really kind of convince you why they were having a season 2. You know, but Daredevil, it was like they had this perfect trilogy. Like it was like basically season 1 is Man Without Fear, the Miller origin story. Season 2 is all the Elektra, the Punisher stuff. It's also heavily influenced by Miller's run. And then season 3 is basically Born Again. And then like an extended Bullseye origin. Like where I wasn't even sure where it was going because at first I didn't even know like who was gonna be Bullseye. I was like, is it this police officer? Is it this guy? Are we telling a Bullseye story? Is Bullseye in this? And then like he emerges like, and so much of the origin that he tells is like they're deep cuts where I was like fact checking everything. I was like, is this from the books? Did they make this up? It's like such deep cuts on Bullseye's origin. Like season 3 is basically Bullseye's origin story. He's not Bullseye till the season is over.
Yeah.
Which is
the last episode, pretty
which is my one gripe. It's not the show's fault, but the show's they're thus canceled and we never get to see Bullseye be Bullseye. But wow, they sold me on Bullseye in a way that like I love Bullseye, you know, in the comics, but wow, the character development and just having Daredevil versus Daredevil. I mean, I don't know. It was such a fresh spin on a classic tale. I mean, the series does not disappoint for me all the way through.
I remember, you know, every time a show gets canceled, its fans go online and try to sign petitions. Right? There's so many shows that get canceled, right? I'm like, I never did any of that stuff, but for Daredevil, I actually did. I signed a petition. I signed multiple petitions.
I don't know which one's the official one. I don't know which one.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that they bring back that show, and I'm so excited that they're at least bringing back, rumored, right?
Yeah. Charlie
Cox and I can't pronounce the last name.
How do we feel about that? We feel like we have faith that that's a real thing that's happening.
I'm not gonna hold my breath.
Oh my goodness.
I will always have hope. I pray it does happen, but at the end of the day, You never really know. And I can't put my hopes on
I don't know. I feel like Marvel doesn't disappoint us. And it's...
I mean, it's different, like, quality of the stuff you're making, but also to harken back to something you did.
Exactly. It's different to bring it back.
But, man, this is... I can't imagine someone else playing Daredevil.
Yeah,
and you got the rights back for Daredevil.
Right.
You need to have Daredevil.
And it's almost like I love...
Because it connects multiple heroes like Spider-Man.
Yeah. And it's almost like I love Daredevil, but I'd almost rather not see any more Daredevil than see someone else play Daredevil. You know? And that might be selfish because they might get someone and it's amazing and whatever. But man, I really don't see it. Charlie Cox is perfect. Wilson Fisk, played by
Vincent
D'Onofrio. Vincent D'Onofrio. It's like I don't see another.
Yeah, I don't see it. Exactly. That's why I can't imagine them
because
there
it's just
without them.
So perfect, and gone too soon. That's what it is. Gone too soon. So if you're gonna revisit those characters, I really want them in those roles. Even if we lose some of the other stuff. Although I'll gladly take all of it. Even Iron Fist. I'll gladly... If I have to keep all of it to get them, then
Did you ever finish season 2 of Iron Fist? I didn't finish it. I didn't even watch it.
I did. The funny thing about that... I think season 2 was actually better than season 1.
I heard that,
Yeah. And then I think that the ending is like a pitch for some season 3 that sounds like it could be great, but... Because it kind of like hints at a lot of the Matt Fraction run of Iron Fist. And I was like, this is great. I'm glad you had this idea. Yeah. 2 minutes left in the show before it gets canceled. But yeah, it's uneven. All right, who's next?
No, like I said, I think the Daredevil show on Netflix is the Dark Knight of all superhero shows. That's my high praise for it.
That is high praise, and I'll agree with that. Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I stopped watching the Flash show, because they were both coming out at the same time.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I told you, I can't watch this after watching Daredevil. I can't watch this CW produced crap.
I mean, well, jeez, wow.
That's how.
Tell us how you really feel.
That's how mad I was after. I'm like, at the quality of this.
Yeah, that's always an interesting idea. I always feel like you don't have to put a thing down to elevate anything.
But that's how I felt at the moment.
It can be kitsch and it can be low budget, and I can just judge it in its own realm. But I understand how you're.
That's how I felt at the moment.
This is the apex versus it's like when you find that right person to share your life with. You're like, I don't want to see anybody else. I understand that.
Exactly. I want to marry Daredevil.
Yeah, you want to put a ring on Daredevil, the Netflix series.
Exactly. Yes. All right, so the last show on my list, talking back to me, growing up thinking that women aren't funny, this show convinced me that women are hilarious, like the top tier. I mean, there's only 2, though. But one of my favorite shows of all time is 30 Rock. I love that show so much.
Yeah.
I think Tina Fey is one of the greatest comedy writers of all time.
Absolutely, yes.
And I put her in, to me, the holy trinity of comedy, female comedians is Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. And I just think it's funny that Julia Louis-Dreyfus does play Tina Fey sometimes on the episode, especially on the live episodes of 30 Rock. So yeah, I should love 30 Rock. It's so out of nowhere, outlandishly hilarious.
Yeah.
So silly as well. Mm-hmm. Like that werewolf bar mitzvah.
It's one of the best jokes.
One of the best jokes ever. And the cool thing about that show is about that joke the song was written by Donald Glover. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, man, it just shows you the guy has range too.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I should love that show so much. I think it's one. It's arguably up there with me for Seinfeld as funniest shows of all time.
Yeah. Wow. I had the same thing. So many of these comedies, I see them in syndication first. So it's I
was watching it as it was going.
Yeah, I definitely did not. So I saw it in syndication. It was all out of order, and so I jumped into it. It was still running. Mm-hmm. So I started watching it as it happened, but I was already behind. I had seen some random stuff and over. So it wasn't until I sat and it's just like Seinfeld in the sense that some of those callbacks, they're so funny. Mm-hmm. But to have that kind of chronology in a sitcom is so rare. You know what I mean? And that's the other thing about the shows that are smart, those smart comedies where you have to watch them in order from the beginning to really appreciate them. And that was 30 Rock for me.
Yeah, 30 Rock. It's another one I've been sleeping on, man. Definitely. There's another thing I was watching the first couple episodes and I just didn't follow through with it. So, in your opinions, would you say I should start with Veep or 30 Rock?
I'm trying to think what's shorter. They're both 7 seasons. I think Veep probably has fewer episodes.
I think you should probably go with Veep.
Veep?
Yeah. Especially since it was already in your queue, like you tried already, so this will be your second attempt. Yeah. You move through each of them fairly quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, I hear it. Okay, so the three, I think, that three comedies that I've been trying, well, not really trying, but that I want to take on the challenge for is Veep, 30 Rock, and Modern Family. Because Modern Family, I watched Modern Family. I just didn't keep up with it.
Right.
I think Modern Family.
I think that happened to a lot of people.
Yeah, but it kept on doing well.
Yeah. I remember I saw the first season, and I was laughing.
I love that show. That show was genius. I do think that there was like a lull. Those were like, we don't really know where we're going. Like the characters are growing, and we're not really sure. But it picks up again. We were watching it week to week. So where like some people tell me like, oh, I just lost it. Like we lost it, but then when the season over, I would actually go back and watch the whole season and catch up, waiting for the next season. So I got to finish it on. I think it sustains pretty well. It's genius at first. It's like good in the middle, and it gets pretty good. It ends in a really nice note, especially because towards the end, it becomes about like, look at this journey that we've had with these people, because it runs a really long time. Like, and I think sometimes we grow up with shows, and when we're younger, we really feel the growing up. But like time moves faster when you're older, and it was like, oh yeah, it's been so many years that we've spent with these characters. Like these kids grew up and they're adults now, and they have their own families, and I didn't even watch it happen. Like I watched it happen, and I didn't realize it.
But where the time
was happening. Yeah. So I'm gonna jump in with mine because I know I'm not gonna get a ton of feedback on mine. I want to piggyback off what Link said. Because you guys probably haven't seen this. It's a show called Soap. Have you guys ever heard about this?
Yeah, watch it with you.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We were younger.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if I had shared this because this was a sitcom. This was a sitcom that it shaped sitcoms for me. This is one of the first sitcoms. They used to give it on Comedy Central, like in the evening, and after like cartoons were done, I didn't have anything to watch, and I don't know how I ended up on Comedy Central, and I was watching this show, and it was like it's a mock soap opera, so it's a comedy.
Soap,
yeah, it's a sitcom about a soap opera, and it has like all the tropes, and the reason why I wasn't sure if any of you guys had seen it was because I had to track this down on DVD, and like they didn't have all of it in order to rewatch this because I rewatched this with my wife when we were dating in college. But
yeah, we watched it through Netflix.
Oh, do they still have it on Netflix?
No, like the
Netflix the
DVD.
discs.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I had to rent the discs.
Oh, what a time! Wow.
Yeah, so they were sending me the discs at home, and I would watch it. So like Billy Crystal's on it.
Billy Crystal, yeah.
Yeah, that was my first exposure to Billy Crystal. I always loved Billy Crystal, and it had such adult topics. And I was a kid, like, growing up. And it's funny because we think about, sometimes we're shocked about the things that, like, kids see and watch nowadays.
No, they've been watching that stuff.
Yeah, we were doing it. And it was like, and you get some of it and you don't get some of it. Mm-hmm. And you learn about it for the first time and everything. But it would just get more and more ridiculous as the years progressed. Like, it would be, like, alien invasions and amnesia and, like, all that crazy stuff that, like, those soap opera, it would just go off the rails. And I'll always remember that it just ends in a cliffhanger because I believe the show just gets canceled. But as a kid, I didn't understand that. So I was just like, this show ends for no reason. Like, this show ends with, like, a super cliffhanger and everyone's life is in danger. And, like, that's how they decided to end the show. And I was like, I don't know if I hate it or if it's genius, And that was just, I'll always remember that. Like, that, like, the Lady and the Tiger, the two doors, which one do you walk through? And we'll never know. That was my first experience with that. So that was Soap. And I wanted to jump in because I wasn't sure if I was going to get any feedback.
No, I remember watching some of the episodes with you and my sister while you guys were dating. And I thought it was funny, but I didn't keep up with it as much as you guys did. But, it was cool to see where Billy Crystal started his career. So I really enjoyed that.
Okay, well, actually, so that's actually everything.
Yeah, because we had Seinfeld. All of us at Seinfeld.
Oh, that's right.
Seinfeld, we had Daredevil, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Daredevil. Yeah, Daredevil. Okay, so Gabe's list is done too.
All right. I guess what we can do really quick is we've been doing this whole time. Let's recommend someone, our listeners, a show from our list for them to watch during the summer.
Okay.
So, at least for my list, my comedy list, I recommend Flight of the Conchords. Not a lot of people have watched it.
Mm-hmm.
Check it out. Super short. It's on HBO. 2 seasons. Hilarious. Taika Waititi is one of the producers in it. Jermaine Clemens. And it's awesome, man. They end up forming another show called What We Do in the Shadows.
Mm-hmm. That's a great honorable mention.
I love that show. But yeah, so check it out. I know you guys will enjoy it. Very dry sense of humor. So if you like that, I recommend it. What about you, Gabe?
For me, I recommend Firefly because I feel like a lot of the shows that I mentioned are pretty popular, so a lot of people have seen it.
Right.
Firefly is also very popular, but I mean, if you're not necessarily looking for it, you won't really know what it is.
Right.
So I would definitely recommend Firefly. I think it's streaming on Hulu. It's only 1 season.
Yeah.
Right.
So Firefly, and then I check out the movie Serenity.
Yes, you have to.
It's like
if
series
you watch
finale,
Firefly, it's
so.
the series. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna watch Firefly.
Awesome. Well, I would recommend Batman the Animated Series because for the first time ever, I think it's readily available to almost everyone.
Yes.
If you have HBO Max or if your grandparents have AT&T and they don't know that they have HBO Max, please make them an account, all right? HBO Max has all of Batman the Animated Series. It's your one-stop shop for DC. Do not watch them in the order that they're on HBO Max. Look up a list for the chronological order.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, because the show will not make sense. Like, Robin will be there, and then, like, he won't be there, and then they'll introduce Robin, okay? So, look up a list, watch it. If, what is it, life hack or pro tip, DuckTales, Gravity Falls, other shows, always look up, especially in animation, what order they're supposed to be watched in. Because they love to syndicate them in the wrong order.
Yeah.
All right? So always look up, make sure that you're watching these episodes in order.
Avatar, Last Airbender.
Yeah,
Oh, they do the same thing with Avatar?
Yeah, but that's just like how I felt like when I was watching it as a kid.
Yeah.
It was every random, there was no cohesiveness to the story. It was just like, all right, what are we going to watch today?
Right.
Oh, this person's here next episode. And they would be back-to-back episodes, but they wouldn't even follow in sequential order. And I was like, huh, okay.
Yeah. With that being said, don't replicate that experience,
Yeah.
okay? You can do better. But if you're not into animation, then I would say Seinfeld. Watch it really quick before it leaves Hulu. It'll be on Netflix, so that actually might be more accessible for most people in the future. But wherever you are, just be aware it's on Hulu now, and it'll be in Netflix in the future.
Yeah, like I think in the summer.
Yeah, very soon. So
Very soon, yeah.
Just get started on it. You will not regret it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, join us back next week when we talk about our top 5 favorite films of all time, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Have a great day and see ya.
all right. Until then, keep on searching.